Rage 2 falls into the same category as Doom for me. It's one of those games that you should be well aware of what you're getting yourself into before you pick it up. Games like these are always packed with raw to the bone, gratifying and ostentatious gameplay, but about halfway into these games I find myself trawling through a gorgeously designed universe thinking, hang on a minute, why am I actually doing all this? What's the story behind me flying around this world at superhuman speeds while obliterating anything that moves?
There's no story here, mate.
And you know what? I'm okay with that. There obviously is some crummy morsel of a story to bookend the whole game, but you really shouldn't be picking games like Rage 2 up for the story. What you should be picking up Rage 2 for is the crunching carnage and bloodletting butchery. For those that do care about the story though, we assume the role of the last ranger of Vineland, Ranger Walker. After mankind was mostly wiped out after the planet was hit by an asteroid, new settlements and factions emerged, with the most menacing of them all being called the Authority. It's up to Ranger Walker to find them and their leader General Cross and take them out. Along the way you'll meet a bunch of lunatic characters, some that are on your side and some that aren't, but very few have any sort of resonating backstory. These characters are mostly written with cheesy, psychotic one-liners and offer very little towards the overarching narrative, and most of these eccentric barn pots act merely as the gatekeepers of more blood-fueled violence, but of course, not before they get you to sign a contract.
Basically, this contract guarantees you can have all the fun you want and nothing bad's ever gonna happen.
Sticking with the concept of blood-fueled violence and bombastic action, Rage 2 is well up there with the likes of Doom, and why wouldn't it be? 50% of the development team was the id Software team, the same guys behind Doom, and the other half of the team were Avalanche Studios, who worked on the open world side of things, and I'll get onto that shortly. The immense satisfaction from pulling the trigger and hearing the crunchy feedback of an explosive headshot, to the lightning movements fluidly tied together with responsive traversal and just the right amount of airtime, it's all there. It's far from a stand back and shoot type of game. You need to get stuck into the meat of it, and diving in headfirst will be rewarded. The enemy's AI is fairly basic, and be prepared to unload a shit ton of ammo because some of these dudes are sponges, but headshots can make light work of them. Movement is vital, not only to avoid the enemy fire, but also to keep your thirsty weapons topped up by smashing the many crates of ammo scattered all over the place, as well as keeping your health topped up with what is rapidly become the hottest product on the planet, this mysterious blue substance known as Nanotrite, which is not only used as an in-game currency to upgrade your skills and weapons, but Walker can also consume it after a downed enemy has dropped some of the blue good stuff for a much needed pick-me-up.
Tight, yeah!
Crystal blue persuasion. Yeah.
The objective to take down General Cross is tackled within something known as Project Dagger, which is something I won't spoil for anyone, but completing the dozens of areas and challenges throughout Vineland will earn you project points that are specifically tied into the 3 leaders of Project Dagger, who you'll meet pretty early on. So it's not just Feltrite you'll be investing into your character's spec. With these project points there's an impressive number of perks to purchase, and the majority will impact the gameplay enough for you to notice, instead of your measly 2% vendor discount bollocks a lot of RPGs stuff into their perk systems. The sense of progression in Rage 2 is really aggressive, with rapid increases in your own abilities as well as your weapons. Every weapon has 5 levels to upgrade, each adding the usual accuracy and damage increases, but not only that, with the use of weapon core mods, which you'll have to hunt down or purchase yourself, you've got a choice of 2 modifications to really mix up your playstyles, whether that's seeking bullets or insanely rapid fire, just to name a few. Even playing the game with a focus on the main campaign, we're generously rewarded with enough resources to upgrade through the many skill paths available to us. We're encouraged to experiment, and thanks to the game's generosity, it never once felt like a grind. The other major abilities are known as the Nanotrite abilities, and these are what make Ranger Walker take his sheer badassery to the next level. Throughout Vineland are these strange towers that can be seen for miles. These arcs offer the real goodies of the game, and held within could be a brand new weapon to shred your enemies with, or even better, a Nanotrite ability. The first one you'll be given is Overdrive, which is effectively Rage mode, where all your weapons inflict ridiculous damage and the enemies have a higher tendency to turn into blood soup if you touch them. There's 11 in total to find, and to name a few, there's Shatter, which is an extremely harsh hand gesture that you can thrust towards an enemy to send them off to space. There's Grav Jump, which is basically just double jump, but have you ever heard of double sprint? Well, now you have, thanks to the Rush ability. But my absolute favourite has to be the Slam ability, combining all of these moves together, kill after kill, fluidly navigating the obstacles within the area, making use of my traversal abilities to end up at a conveniently high spot and activating my Slam ability, launching myself into the air and raining down pure death and destruction that just happens to be in the shape of me. There's also a crafting section to the game too, but there's really not that much to discuss here. It's quite a basic system containing items that you'll likely have a ton of already. I did think it was an interesting choice to put such insanely crisp combat gameplay into an open world and then make this open world so big. It's far too big in my opinion. It's a difficult balance to strike, in fairness to the developers, because you don't want the sandbox to be too small because obviously that would reduce content, but also not forgetting there is vehicle combat within the game. I hate feeling harassed in vehicle combat games because sometimes you're just trying to get from A to B, and in that sense they've almost gone too far the other way in terms of spacing out the vehicle combat segments. So yes, you can simply just explore the map without being derailed, but you'll rack up a fair bit of time simply driving from one point to another. To alleviate these extremely noticeable gaps between the action, they've thrown in some random events of factions fighting by the roadside and even included some barn pot mobile vendor who'll blast ice cream music on his ventures, which seems highly irresponsible in a world like this.
Alright, give it up! Protect, little fool! Just don't shoot him!
You'll be itching to get back into the combat, and the driving mechanics are pretty shoddy when it comes to the simplicity of driving and cornering because the vehicles are mechanically designed for combat. The driving combat aspect in Rage 2 is not so shoddy, in fact it's pretty fun, tactically taking out convoys, focusing on the minions that are surrounding the main monstrosity of metal on wheels before eventually honing in on the big rig itself, picking off the weak points while avoiding the wide range of attacks it throws back at you. It's satisfying stuff. There's a good number of vehicles to choose and steal, with the Phoenix being your first and having its very own skill tree to invest in, opening all sorts of variety to your own attacks as well. But whenever I'm not firing a weapon out of Ranger Walker's hands, I can't help but feel like I wish I was. It's great to include variety within a game, but the gunplay is just so good that it upstages the rest of the game, making everything else feel worse than it actually is. This stood out even more on my second playthrough, as the more time I spent on the road, the more I wanted to be shooting bad guys. The world has been littered with map icons to tick off, and there's not too much in the way of variation to each event or activity that you can get stuck into. You've got authority sentries, which are these towers that come to life and attack with different dodgeable waves that need taking down, a race circuit, which is, to be honest, incredibly boring, finding one of your fellow fallen rangers, as well as taking out the convoys. Oh, and then there's the occasional random NPC event which asks the question we've all been wanting answered: who would win out of a fight between Snotrag and Ringworm? And that's really about it. Everything else is a rebranded activity where I'll hop out of my vehicle and proceed to kill a whole bunch of enemies in an extremely satisfying, creative and bloodthirsty manner. Bandit dens, crusher nests, mutant nests, pit stops. Yeah, they fluff up the map and fill it with content, but all of this is just rebranded moment-to-moment gunfights, and this is what I want. Give me more of this. I don't think the open world was a complete failure. At times it was pretty fun to explore the limited biomes, but especially during my second playthrough, I felt that the world got in the way of what I really wanted. It made me question the need for an open world at all. I would have preferred the Doom approach with meticulous, well-designed levels, but that would obviously negate the vehicle combat, which, although it couldn't hold a candle to the gunplay, it still wasn't bad, and it would be a shame to lose it. It's a tough one to get right, so if this would be your first playthrough, then I wholeheartedly recommend Rage 2 just for the gameplay alone, but if you're sensitive to the tropes of modern day open worlds, then this might not be for you. Those of you that have played Rage 2 already, what would you change about the game, if anything? Did you like the open world, or would you rather them do away with it entirely? Would you prefer they found some sort of balance, maybe shrinking the world down instead? Do you think there's a chance we'll ever see a Rage 3, because initial sales of Rage 2 suggests it'll be a pretty hard sell? Let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next one.